It does seem as if if anything, the politics, as dynamic as they might be, and I certainly agree on that, might be going in the opposite direction. And I'm talking about presidential politics, judging from what David Plouffe said at the Bloomberg breakfast the other day, in which it seems as if the political strategy of the administration is to avoid discussion of jobs or the unemployment rate at all. But let's talk about some of the specifics if we can. Maybe, Patrick, you can talk a little bit in more detail about the China trade issue, the environment for getting tougher with China.
Right. I'm a member of the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission. This is like a bipartisan congressional think tank on China. We've issued a number of reports. Almost all of them have been unanimous, 12-0, Republicans and Democrats seeing it exactly right. I want to make clear I'm a member of the commission. I'm not speaking for the commission at this meeting. Our website is www.uscc.gov. Everything we do is up there. Let me just quickly go through this. In the last 10 years, the United States has run $6 trillion worth of trade deficits. We've run $2 trillion of trade deficits with China. When you are running these kinds of trade deficits, it means you're outsourcing your manufacturing and you're bringing it back. Most of our imports from China are manufactured goods. 60% of China's exports are made by foreign invested companies. Now, when you are shipping your manufacturing abroad, that's tied to your budget deficit because revenue that used to be produced here, goods here that produced wealth, are now being produced abroad and imported into the country. People who used to have good jobs in this country and paid taxes are now no longer paying taxes. We're putting money into keeping them going through unemployment and other things. But I've watched this debate going on in the Congress, and I have not heard anyone tying the budget deficit to the trade deficit. The American people know something bad is happening. They always talk about the fact that you go to a store and you can't even buy anything made in America. Now, what China? China was a great civilization. They fell apart. The communists took control. They tried to build a centralized economy under Mao Zedong. The real genius come along in Deng Xiaoping in 1979. He said, we need foreign investment, foreign technology, foreign markets. And that's the way we're going to build what he calls China's comprehensive national power. They don't just talk about their economic power. They use a term called comprehensive national power, meaning political, military, and economic. And it's all based on the economic. And if you'll watch, their military is growing pretty rapidly. So I don't mean to be a China basher, and I'm not. I first went to China in 1981. I saw a very poor country. You go to China now, you see a very prosperous and booming country, at least for 300 or 400 million of the 1.2 billion people. But they have a strategy. They're incentivizing our companies to outsource production to China. Instead of contributing to job growth in this country, our companies are contributing to job growth in China. Now, there are various things that we could do, and we talk about that in the report. Our guys get a tax break for building jobs abroad. They don't have to pay taxes on that money that they earn. Now, is that a crazy policy or what? And we talk about that in the report. China underprices its currency, and the IMF just yesterday said that the Chinese currency is substantially undervalued. What does that mean? It means when we ship a good to China, it's more expensive than it should be. The goods from China coming here get an export subsidy from that underpriced currency. Further, it incentivizes American companies, instead of building production here, to build it in China and ship it back here. And that's all part and parcel of what is happening here. One last thing, if I could speak to, there's something called indigenous innovation. When China joined the WTO, they used to say to American companies, if you want access to the China market, you have to make stuff in China. So when they joined the WTO, we said no more of that forced technology transfer. And that's in their WTO agreement. They won't do that. But they do it. Here's the way they do it. They tell an American company, if you want to sell to the Chinese government, you've got to be on this list of companies. Or if you want access to our market, you've got to be a friend of China and you've got to do R&D in China. China's see, so our technology, our brain power, and what we did well is now their Chinese are getting that technology and know-how in China through that what they call indigenous innovation. That's contrary to their WTO obligations. Now, what do they say to defend it? They say, well, we're not really forcing the companies. It's not forced technology. We're just telling the companies if they want to be a friend of China and make money in China, they got to transfer their R&D and their technology. So they say we're not violating our WTO obligations at all. But we can re-incentivize this game. We've got to get our house in order and re-incentivize our guys. Maybe we should have lower taxes on companies that produce GDP in this country and higher taxes on companies that produce GDP in China. I mean, there are all kinds of things we can do. We should not let this go on because our children's future is really being sacrificed.